Welcome to Might in Motion, where we help you navigate your personal and professional goals to manifest them into your deserved career and life path. Here at Might in Motion, we don't make excuses, we do the work and go above and beyond. The Might in Motion podcast brings you guests that will help stretch you out of your comfort zone and push you to improve your goals. Like, comment, and share. This is Might in Motion. I am really excited to bring to tonight's event Will Chu, who is the CEO and co-founder of Vector. It's a real-time YMS platform that facilitates collaboration between different distribution centers or stores and truck drivers. And it's really cool way to have delivery processes become more transparent. Prior to Vector, he was the VP of Engineering at Adipar, a wealth management platform, which manages more than $2 trillion in client assets. He is a problem solver at heart, enjoys leveraging technology to tackle major industry challenges. In his free time, I don't know how he has free time, he loves to camp with his family, cold IPAs, and swimming in the San Francisco Bay. So we are excited to welcome Will. I think I have you unmuted, which is great.
Yeah.
So welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you. I know we've had the opportunity to work together off and on over the past few years, and it has been really cool to get to know you and to get to know your team in a better way. And I don't know how you swim almost every morning in the bay. Is that right?
It's less now. It's getting colder. But I try to do 3 or 4 times a week.
And how far of a swim are you doing?
Weekends are longer, but on average, probably 1.5 miles.
Wow. That's really cool. One of the things that I talk about with people is that when you're working to go after a goal, right, there are obviously goals that might be work related, there are goals that are personal related, but that physical aspect of doing something like beyond yourself physically has an impact to everything. And so I think that you going out there and swimming multiple times a week is really cool. I'm sure you've done some crazy stuff. Like on your birthday, I think you mentioned like you might jump into the bay naked. I don't know. Is that true? Is that a fact?
There may be photos out there, but yeah,
I'm not looking for them. Don't worry. We're good. Those aren't on LinkedIn, so we're good.
Yeah, we'll keep them off.
But I wanted to have you on tonight because you've created some really cool teams that have done some pretty amazing things. You built companies from scratch, and through that, sometimes when you're the one that's building stuff, it's hard to kind of move up and step away. And I've seen you just really build teams of people that are really bought into your vision. And I'd love to know some of your thoughts on how you've done that.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's a continuous learning process. It's something where it's an evolution. I think every team that I've been a part of has a unique DNA and a unique culture, and most of them high functioning, and they're just different. And you gotta, I think, for at least me, let it grow and breathe and take on a form of its own. And I think if you can step back and do that, it feeds upon itself, and it, I think, really empowers people to leverage their superpower. I believe that every person is really great at something, and it takes a little bit of time to discover it. But if you can discover it and allow them to discover it, you can really harness it, and it really accelerates the team.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've had teams of 1 to teams of close to 20. And, sometimes as you get the larger teams, it's harder to necessarily have some of that one-on-one interaction. But when you're able to, and you're able to get to really know people and what motivates them, that could be a real game changer as well. At least that's what I've seen. I love your commentary on kind of leveraging people's superpower. sometimes I've had leaders that are like, oh, that's a weakness of yours, so I'm going to purposely put you in something where you can learn that weakness. Whereas if you can kind of continue to harness that superpower, you can really go further.
Yeah, and I think weaknesses are great. I think identifying them and figuring out like,
Hmm.
hey, how do I work on this and how do I improve this so that it eventually turns into your superpower. That's
Yeah.
really cool. I've seen that transformation as well, and that's incredibly rewarding.
So how have you gone about building some of these high performing teams, especially in the world we're in now where everybody's not everybody, but a lot of people are remote, right? Like you're out in the West Coast, I'm East Coast. So how have you done that?
That's been tricky. This is new frontier for us.
Mhm.
Just being physically present in an office here in San Francisco, going to every corner of the nation and the world. Like people are just um, really everywhere now. So I think it's again a continuous learning process, and I think it goes back to the fundamentals. I think understanding why people
Mhm.
want to be a part of this team is really important. I think being able to paint the North Star or to, really bring everyone together, coalesce them around a shared vision is really important. And don't get me wrong, there's stuff that I think we all have to do that's not pleasant, not fun,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that having that shared vision and explaining the why is important when you're in the trenches and doing the stuff that you don't want to do, knowing that there's a bigger purpose is really helpful. Um, and I think it also just goes back to hiring. I think we've been really lucky and fortunate with some incredible people on our team. My philosophy is always to hire a person that's stronger, better, faster than me.
Hmm.
I want people to tell me what to do instead of
Yeah.
having me tell people what to do. I think that's really important. If you can bring on those people and they all of a sudden feed off each other, they're really pushing the company forward. They're thinking of things that um, really push people out of their comfort zones. I think you see some incredible things happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So let's dive a little bit deeper. You talk about, painting a North Star for a vision. How have you gone about doing that for the teams that you've created? Are there any kind of key things that people can take away, especially maybe new managers, people that are new to having teams and direct reports?
Yeah, I think for new people that are coming into the company, into the industry, there's a bit of education. I think painting that north star, but explaining the why. Like, why is
Yeah.
that? If we achieve this big, hairy, audacious goal, what does that mean for the industry? What does that mean for the company? What does that mean for me? So I think that there's definitely an onboarding process with newer folks, but it's important, and I think you have to constantly reiterate the why and
Yeah.
the North Star. Um, I think you gotta like it's like when you're I'm sure this probably gets annoying for like pop stars, but they have to sing the same song over and over and over again.
Right.
I think of it as that, like you have to just say it over and over and over again. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's still, I mean, honestly, just speaking transparently, that's something that I'm still working on myself. So it's a process every day.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like having kids because there are things that I have to tell mine over and over and over again, and and I hope that my kids get it someday, right? But I mean, even in business, we talk about a lot on my team, our metrics, and when there are changes to the team, there might be changes in focus, and we add new platforms and things like that, and so really understanding why change is happening can get people bought in so much faster, and having that transparency is huge. When you get people bought in, you're able to really, I think, drive some really cool change, which is awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned transparency. I think that's something that's really key. I think if people feel like they have control and understand why decisions are being made or the framework of how decisions are being made, uh,
Yeah.
that's really impactful.
So you mentioned when you're hiring, You're like, oh, you want to hire someone that's better than yourself, that may have a different skill set, that brings a different industry background or whatever to the table. How do you also look at culture fit to your team? Because everyone that I've worked with within your org just really seems to be cut out of the same kind of cloth, right? With humor and with a sense of urgency and just this total sense of collaboration. So, is there something that you do to try to interview for culture fit as well?
Um, that's hard. We definitely have in terms of a panel. So we have a panel of interviews, and there is a section or a part of the interview process where we test for culture fit. But I think that's really really difficult. I think over time I've gotten to the point where I like people that aren't cut from the same cloth a little
Mhm.
bit, because then it brings a little bit of a different perspective. It brings a different kind of energy. Um, so that's hard to test for. So we place less importance on that. We actually focus more on the technical, and then the all the other intangibles hopefully come through. And
Yeah.
honestly, sometimes we get it wrong, right? And it's not a fit.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about it though, the fits, but sometimes we miss, and that's hard and that's painful, but we talk about it. Um, but I will say the people that we've hired even recently, because it's hard to do that over Zoom, right?
Yeah.
A lot of our interviews are over Zoom. I've been really just impressed and surprised, pleasantly surprised, because that's harder and harder to test for.
It is. I mean, I guess on the flip side, a lot of their interaction probably with your clients is going to be over Zoom too. So you're getting a different kind of screening, if you will, with your candidates on what's their presence in this very remote, environment.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So, as you've grown, multiple companies, and you hire on folks. You have managers of managers. A lot of the folks that tune into this call are in that period of their career where they're moving from, an individual contributor to a manager role. What lessons do you wish you knew when you were making that transition?
Oh man, how long is it?
How long is the call?
Yeah. Oh man, it's about to get dark.
Oh
No. I think one of the biggest lessons learned, I think, is being a good listener, being present.
no. Yes.
I think that is really tough, and I think it gets tougher nowadays too, because you're usually talking to someone on Zoom. It's so easy to go to your other browser and start doing
Yes.
work in parallel, right? But something honestly that I work with my family. I think being
Mm,
present at dinner and being able to listen and understand where they're coming from is super important. And I think if you do, and if you hear everything, then I think it allows for this collaborative session where you're working together towards this common goal, and you're hearing the whys and why nots, and they're hearing the whys and why nots from you.
yep.
I think that's much appreciated. And I think just focusing on being present.
Yeah, I like that. It is, to your point, very difficult, right? Like I have two computers, I have, multiple monitors. It's so easy to just be like, oh, shiny ball, right? That you can just go and end up being focused on something else, and then you just miss that opportunity, right, to connect. It is difficult, I think, in this remote environment to do that, but when you can create those relationships, when you can create that connection by being present, it just, I don't know, it really creates that team environment where you can exceed expectations, because now you've heard what might be the risks, or you've heard, hey, there was this pitfall that somebody else went through. Here's a way to solve it, or here's something that I've done in the past, and you can actually get some wins instead of people continuing to do the same pitfall over and over again.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So you mentioned, and I think I mentioned at the beginning as well in the intro, was, you have a family, you have kids, they're young kids. I am not a believer in work-life balance. I don't think that that really exists. I do think that there is work-life integration, and I'm finding that more and more now that I'm working from home. I'm not working, in an office every day. How do you go about trying to find those opportunities to be fully present with your family, and balancing, that life of being, a CEO?
Mm. Um, I think that is a great question, and I think it goes back to just really telling myself mentally, I am in this space right now with my
Hmm.
family, whether it is in the car taking them to school, right? And so often my mind can drift to work and I'm thinking about stuff, but then I have to really correct myself and think, hey, I get 20 minutes with my kids in the car uninterrupted. We can sing a song, we can
Yeah,
do anything, we can talk about the day, what they want to do. But it's really just going through that mental checklist, like, okay, let's focus on this. Like this is a special time, even though it may seem so routine and boring,
yeah.
just taking advantage of that. And so whether it is, in the car, at dinner, at a playground, just trying to just tell myself this is where I'm at, and then being 100% in that
Mhm,
space, in that time,
mhm.
um, but still working on it.
Well, I think everything's a work in progress. Like I used to have the what I called my decompression time on my 45-minute commute home. Right? I don't have that anymore. My commute is 2 seconds to the kitchen to make dinner. Right? So it you have to be really cognizant of, you had a stressful day at work. You got to kind of flip the switch and say, now I'm in my home life. And how do you bring your best self to that? Just like you want to bring your best self to work, you want to bring your best self to your family. And I am by no means an expert. I've failed horribly at times on both, but it is, I think when you can carve out those special moments and you create those routines, right? You're talking about your routine is the drive to school in the morning. My One of my routines is bedtime. So I have, 5 to 10 minutes of, this is uninterrupted one-on-one time with each of my girls in the room, the door closed, no electronics. Like if they want to read, if they just want to cuddle, if they want to talk about their day, it is their uninterrupted time. Even from, like, my husband and their father, right? Like it's just kind of
Yeah,
like, no, this is us. This is us girl time. And that's been, I think, one of the biggest changes for my relationship with my kids, is because they may ask me how my day is and I have the opportunity to be like, oh, well, this happened and this happened, or they want to share something that happened in their life. It's been really special. But that's that being present, going right back to that, right?
yeah, um, yeah. That's great. I think you and I kind of share the similar like way of thinking about how to be present and
Yeah.
make sure that the space is protected from other distractions. I think that's
Yeah.
hard, and I think I'm on the same page with the work life integration. It's not a balance. It's an integration.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, there are times when I explain to the kids, I'm like, look, this is, mommy has to go do this. This is why I have to go do this, because they understand more than you think they do, right? Even at 6 and 8, they understand a whole heck of a lot. And then there's opportunities to teach them. So I always joked, I would have to do pickup in the past, and I'd pick them up from daycare, and it was right in the middle of Hurricane Maria and Irma when it destroyed, USVI and Puerto Rico, and that was my area of coverage. And I swear these two girls probably knew everything about transportation between U.S. mainland and offshore from sitting in the back seat, right? And so I'm like, this is a great opportunity. They're going to be great women in supply chain someday, because little nuggets are going to be, floating around in that brain, right? So there's definitely, I think, opportunities both ways to kind of have that integration and that exposure, and all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah.
So kind of going back to, and then we have, I think, about 5 more minutes. We haven't gotten any questions in the chat. So if somebody has a question they want to ask, once again, don't hesitate, drop it in the chat so we can see it pop up. But, we talk about new leaders. and making that transition from individual contributor to that manager role. And one of the things I try to work with my team on when people make that transition is understanding that they now have an opportunity to train others on the things that they know, right? Like their expertise from being that contributor, and then stepping away to let their new team do what they need to do. And I definitely see you do that, right? Even with your team that may not be brand new managers, you're really, really good at, even at calling yourself out, like, oh, nope, I need to step back. I want to problem solve, but let them problem solve. How have you coached new leaders to be able to do that?
I think every new leader is a little bit different, right? Some are a fiery team leader. They motivate through words and they rally people. Some are more of the quiet leader, right?
Yep.
They're a little bit more not passive is the wrong word, but they like to take a step back and really observe before they get into it. And so I think there's all these different styles, and I think you got to harness um, the powers that people are comfortable with.
Yeah.
It's hard to make a fiery leader a little bit more quiet and observant, and it's definitely hard to go the other way. So I think all styles work. And I think for me, the way that I do it, I try to do it by example. So I think the best way of how people learn to do, let's say, one-on-ones or to provide
Mm-hmm.
feedback is to do it myself with that person. And that style may work for them. That style may not. But
Yeah.
I think definitely leading by example is huge because they see it. I think it resonates better than just providing, direct kind of checklist. Oh, you got to do X, you got to do Y, you got to do Z.
Yep.
Excuse me. I think just even breaking that wall and taking a step back. It's like, hey, so I noticed that you do X, Y, Z. I think there might be a different direction. For me, this works, but
Mm-hmm.
if that doesn't work for you, you could try ABC. And I think just having a conversation about it and allowing them to provide feedback too makes
Yeah.
it like two-way communication, and it's not just one way. You're just providing feedback all the time, but it allows it to be a little bit more collaborative, and you can have an open discussion about, hey, actually, like they can tell me, I actually don't like the way that you do that, and I think you could be way better at that, and I'm going to incorporate that into my own way of how I work with my team.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, that goes back to listening, being present too, right? If somebody's willing to be like, hey, this didn't work for me,
Yeah.
you've created that trust environment, which is super cool. So I actually just got a text message. So I know that we were talking about don't be distracted, but when I made the comment of, hey, post comments, apparently somebody posted one, but it didn't come through on our end, but they texted me because that's how we roll. So the question was, is there a book that you recommend that you've read that you're like, man, this is a killer book. Everybody should read it. And maybe what's on your nightstand right now that you're reading?
That's a great question. So in terms of team building books, I actually don't have one. That's off the top of my head, but
Yep.
a big part of my day is storytelling,
Mm,
and
yeah.
I've tried to be a better storyteller. Whether it's communicating our vision, whether it's in a
Yeah.
sales presentation, and I've been fascinated with comedians because they tell stories that people love listening to
Over and over again. So
over
that,
and over again.
uh-huh.
And everything from timing, right? How they time the things that they say. It's incredible. So I've been reading a lot of books about comedians writing their own kind of autobiography. So um, Colin Jost, he wrote
Yeah.
autobiography. He does weekend updates on SNL.
Yeah.
There's a book by Cal Penn, who was Kumar from Harold and Kumar.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are the books on my nightstand, and I like to look at their process and think about how I incorporate their processes in my storytelling.
That's really cool. I love that. I'm my background, from when I was a little kid was theater, and comedy is really hard, like really hard. Not only just to kind of be up there as a stand up, but also just to perform it. And so I think that that's really cool that you're leveraging um, the arts to be a better leader, right? That's really cool. I love that. I absolutely love that. What about a podcast? You listen to podcasts?
Um, I listen to different episodes of podcasts
Hmm.
based on reviews and their content. So there's a few startup podcasts that I listen to. Um, I don't have their names. I'm embarrassed. I should know. I can provide it
You could
later.
drop it in the chat when we're done, because just drop it in the live after it's posted, and I'm sure there'll be conversations beyond this. So
Yeah. Uh,
fantastic. Um, well, we're getting close to time. Is there any kind of closing comments that you may have, or how could people reach you if they want to learn more? Is LinkedIn the best way, or is it with vector.com? I mean, what would be a good way for them to connect if they wanted to?
yeah. Find me on LinkedIn. Will Chu. Our website's withvector.com. And looking forward to hearing back from everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Will, for joining us today. Thank you for tuning into Might in Motion. If you learned something about motivation, momentum, mindfulness, or might, please like, comment, and share. Thank you.